So we've been told that AI is going to displace hundreds of millions of jobs over the coming years. We've even seen companies like Salesforce fire half of their customer service staff for AI agents. But Vanguard just released a very interesting analysis that counteracts that statement, that idea. And today we're going to be covering this Vanguard study because I think it's very interesting. And if you're new here, I'm Mark, and we cover how AI is impacting your world and your career 6 days a week. So make sure that you like and subscribe. So today, Vanguard released an analysis that both wage and jobs have grown in occupations that are most exposed to AI versus those with less exposure. And I think this is very fascinating when we look at both the short term and the long term. And as we discussed a couple days ago, I'll post a link to a video here. It sounds like a lot of the CEOs actually agree with this. They're predicting a huge boom in these fields over the next 12 months, stating that they're actively expecting just the AI career field to boom, which I think is very interesting. Again, link to that video here. But Vanguard agrees the job market has problems. They're not just saying that everything is hunky-dory, that Trump to the rescue, he saved the day. They're not exactly claiming that. They agree that there's problems in the job market. For example, in November, we only added 64,000 jobs, and the unemployment rate reached a 4-year high, basically the worst since COVID-19. And we're seeing that a lot of the professional occupations like consulting are seeing job losses, which we also covered in a video. We'll post a link to that video here. Guys, we got the receipts here on the channel, right? If you watch the channel, you know basically before everyone else knows. Anyway, we covered this in a video here too, where McKinsey was announcing thousands and thousands of layoffs because consulting just isn't the same now as it was. But Vanguard's study shows more to the story than we've been led to believe. So what did Vanguard do? Well, so Vanguard looked at the Labor Department's database of nearly every occupation in the United States. It identified jobs where people perform tasks that can either be augmented or replaced with artificial intelligence. Some of those jobs include data analysis, HR assistants, law clerks, customer service reps. And it also compared that with jobs with low AI exposure, like construction, cleaning. But what they found completely shocked them. It shocked me. And we'll get more into that in just a moment. But what they found shocked them. They found that the real wages increased 3.8% in these highly exposed jobs versus 0.7% in other occupations. What does that mean? Well, it means that people in the AI fields, in these AI-related occupations, saw a lot more of a raise. They saw much more of a pay bump than people in these other occupations. So if you're in construction, you're staying flat, which, by the way, even at 3.8, that's barely outpacing inflation. At 0.7%, you're under inflation. So, gosh, I understand why people are so frustrated right now. I mean, you got to fight. You got to fight for inches, guys, when you're seeing inflation where it's at now. I was at Chipotle yesterday, and it cost me almost $20 for a burrito. I didn't get chips. I didn't get a drink. It was like $70 and change. Of course, I had a double meat because, we had the double meat. But regardless, inflation is way up. By the way, I covered what's happening at Chipotle, by the way. Their stock has plummeted this year. People are not going back to Chipotle. I covered this in a video. You can check out here. I know I'm referencing a bunch of videos, but it's because I find this stuff fascinating, and we're covering it 6 days a week. Make sure you like and subscribe. So anyway, the real wages increased 3.8% for these highly exposed jobs versus 0.7% in these other occupations. And job growth was also positive at 1.7% in these highly exposed jobs versus only 0.8% in other industries. And what we're seeing here is that AI is making work more productive. But you don't just have to take my word for it. Listen to what the Box CEO Aaron Levy says about software demand, because software engineering has seen a huge bump in productivity. He says, quote, "If you lower the cost of building software, you have 10 times the use cases for software." And that's the part that everybody misses. So basically what he's saying is that with AI to enhance code writing, it makes our software developers and software engineers way more efficient and more effective. They're able to write a lot more code, much faster. We covered this in a video a little while ago. I'll post a link to it here about how vibe coding is a scam. And it was a little bit clickbaity, that video. because I don't think vibe coding is a scam necessarily. What I do think is a scam is people walking around saying, oh, if you have no coding experience, you can just pick up vibe coding and you can build your own Stripe platform. It's not quite that simple, guys. There's more to it. Where we're seeing the huge gains in vibe coding, essentially you type in what you want, you type in a prompt, and then the AI software writes all the code for you. Where we're seeing the gains is when you put tools like this in the hands of someone that really knows how to do something with it. Think about it this way. You put a paintbrush in a monkey's hand, they're not going to be able to paint the same way as Van Gogh would be able to paint. Does that make sense? Same thing with vibe coding. You put a software tool like Replit or Lovable into a software developer's hand, they're going to understand the nuance, they're going to understand troubleshooting, they're going to understand how to tell the software via prompts how to accomplish what they want. Anyway, we're seeing a big boom in software engineering, which I think is interesting. I mean, we are about to enter a golden age of app development, I believe. It's just gonna be crazy. And as the software gets better, we might get to a point where any regular person that doesn't know how to code is able to develop more complex softwares. Or it might just bring the cost of software development down to near zero, which is also kind of interesting. Anyway, there are some questions here, guys. So we see basically what Vanguard is saying is that, hey, we've been told that AI is going to displace all these jobs, but that's not what the data show. And okay, that's fair. But I do have a couple questions. One of the questions is motive. So investors, investment companies, investment firms like Vanguard, they have a direct interest in impacting positive public sentiment about AI. Why? Well, because these AI companies are driving huge investments, huge amounts of capital, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars being tossed around in the AI tech sector. And in fact, if you take out the big seven, the magnificent seven out of the stock market doesn't look so hot at that point. All the growth, all the gains is happening in the AI sector. So, the reason why the public sentiment is important is you're having a lot of people walking around saying, we don't want it, we don't need it, it's bad. People like Bernie Sanders just earlier this day said, we need a complete moratorium on data center construction. The more people you get behind the AI is evil, AI is bad, AI is going to take all of our jobs, we need to shut it down, the harder it's going to be for these companies to move capital around. So Vanguard definitely has an interest in reversing and changing that public sentiment. But what I want to get at here, because I personally think AI has a lot of problems. There's a lot of challenges associated with it. But I think with any new technology, it's scary at first. It will transform our lives in many ways. Some for good, some for bad. The reality is, guys, it's happening. I told this to my kids the other day. There's a difference between crying and whining. Okay, crying means something bad happened to you, you're hurt, you're injured psychologically, physically, maybe emotionally. There's nothing wrong with crying, okay? But there is a problem with whining, in my opinion. Whining is complaining about things that are outside of your control, blaming things on things that are outside of your control. I'm a big believer that I can actually control my destiny, and I think that you can too with the right mentality. Anyway, not to say that things are fair, not to say that life is fair, not to say that we can't enact change. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that AI is going to happen. It is a tsunami. It is an unstoppable tsunami. We're not going to be able to change. We're not going to be able to change it. But what we can do is we can embrace it to improve the lives of ourselves and our families and our communities, to achieve financial freedom. I don't want to have to worry about money. Someone asked me the other day, what does financial freedom mean? It means I don't have to worry about money. I can do what I want. I can fulfill my lifestyle. I don't have to worry about where's my next dollar going to come from. That's what I want. I don't need to be rich. I just don't want to have to worry about money, if that makes sense. I also want to be relevant, respected as well. Men need that. We need to feel relevant and respected. And a big part of that relevancy, a big part of that respect comes along with our ability to provide for our families. You're just not going to feel relevant and respected if your wife comes home and you're vegged out watching Netflix. That doesn't work. We need to stay relevant and respected. Anyway, long story short, this report from Vanguard kind of counteracts what we've been seeing in the market. And what is, I think, interesting to also consider, guys, is it's gonna be very difficult to predict the future completely, because the jobs that are replaced might surprise us. Perfect example is, you look back a few years ago, we initially expected all the trucker jobs to be replaced. But it now appears that the truckers are not first on the line to be replaced. So it's gonna be complicated. And I've said this before in a bunch of videos, guys, is that what might seem small now, it could accelerate very, very, very quickly. And I think frankly, I think self-driving cars, delivery vehicles, moving people, I think that industry is primed for a massive change. I want to say there's about 8 million drivers in the United States that make their living transporting people, Uber, bus driver, all that stuff. And it doesn't take a lot for autonomous vehicles to completely replace all those jobs. That could happen very, very quickly. That might be a thing that it starts slow and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, robo-taxis were very successful in Austin. Now we're gonna roll them out in Miami, in New York City, in Kansas City. And all of a sudden you say, oh crap, we don't need humans driving for Uber anymore. Anyway, we're gonna see how it plays out. But what does that mean? Here's the deal, guys. We can't completely predict the future, but what we can predict is that AI is gonna impact you and me very, very fundamentally in a lot of ways. It's gonna play a major role in the workplace, it's gonna play a major role in education, in healthcare, everything. And now is the time to adapt to these professional tools. That has been my stance since the beginning of the channel. That is my stance now. It will not change. It is going to change, and the AI is going to change our world. And it is incumbent upon you and me to learn these tools so we can remain relevant, respected, and financially free. And if you find yourself in a job situation where you're unable to learn these tools, that your bosses, your seniors, your clients aren't giving you the ability to learn these tools, you gotta find a way to learn. These tools are not very expensive to fire up. So try firing up a little side hustle after work on the side. Try using AI in more and more situations. In fact, you might even find another job that empowers you to use these tools. And by the way, I bet if you went to your bosses and senior management, all that, and you said, hey, this is a tool, I'm excited about it, it's interesting, can we test it? There's probably a good chance that they would be on board with innovating and testing. If they're not, I don't know if that's a place that I would personally want to work. The reality is, guys, is that AI is not going anywhere, and we definitely need to be adapting and learning. And this is the whole mission of what I'm doing here on YouTube and what I'm doing with my newsletter, AIupdate.ai, which you should sign up for. It's completely free, AIupdate.ai. Guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you have an awesome weekend. Go out and crush it. And if you like today's video, go check out yesterday's video where we talk about how India is primed to explode in productivity. There's so much investment going into India right now. Check out that. And again, if you want to remain relevant, respected, and financially free, you got to understand not just what's happening here in the United States, but you have to understand what's happening globally. And India, guys, is primed to blow. Go check out that video. All right, boys, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.